Hello, everybody. My name is Thomas Dorfler. Welcome, everybody, to our video contribution on place, space, and the urban. What makes a city?
Hello, my name is Uli Philsmeyer, and we are currently here at Leuphana Campus Scharnhorststraße. For those of you who are interested geographically, this is our current coordinate. We're both geographers, so we think that it is of importance.
What we like to present first is a short story of the long history of spatial thinking to give you some insights on the way, if you like, the spatial phenomenon or spatial aspects of Indian history were conceptualized, if you like. And if you see on this slide, it refers to a former presentation of mine. One can say in a very, very simple manner that the history of thinking was a movement, if you like, or a development from the flat thinking of the prehistoric times, which is represented here by a flat representation of the Earth in an ancient map, to Euclidean geometry and his conception of absolute space in the ancient times, to a, let's say, linear time-space relation of modernity, to a postmodern approach, which we like to call relational space, referring to some theorists and theories we will present you in on the last slide. If you would like to have it represented in some sort of graphics, a graphical representation, one can say that on the left we have a modern representation of space, let's say in urban planning, and on the right we have a postmodern approach of space, a relational one, where the relations between the subjects, who or whatever it might be, is in the center, in the focus of thinking. Let's have a look how the contemporary approaches deal with the problem. If you focus on the city, as the city is our main subject in this course, one can say that a city is also a certain socio-space, a socio-spatial relation in a certain time in history. And it's a product of people, infrastructure and technique, which are interacting in a certain way and under certain conditions of density and the like, which you know from the first video on urbanism. And every interaction needs a form to be conducted. This is very decisive for the contemporary spatial thinking. Means that a ritual, you need a ritual and a setting for the ritual to be conducted, to be performed. The same for a rule, for an institution, a command, and whatever. You can't do it, in flat space, if you like. You need a certain social spatial setting. So these forms, these settings incorporate a spatial relation. If you like or if you don't like it, you can't escape from the problem. That is, for instance, a national territory where the rules have to be conducted. A living room where you invite people and live with people and live for yourself. That's why it's called a living room. A lecture hall like this, maybe a street market, or even a brothel. An example by Foucault, which we will refer later on in the heterotopian section. In doing so, by performing these rituals and so on, we also produce and reproduce this necessary spatial forms and settings. As I said, if you like or if you don't like, you can't escape the problem. So, to put it in the language of theory, social space is a social product. Very, very basic insight provided by Lefebvre, first 1974, in English 1994. And space has a history, a genealogy of thinking, acting, and performing spatial in different epochs. It's not the same what history and the institutions of history do in a spatial way throughout the history. That's an idea Foucault brought up. In the mundane world, for the mundane philosophy and sociology, we can say we do synthesis and spacing, to locate and position social goods, and other people. That is an idea provided by Martina Löw in his Sociology of Space of 2001. And there's an interesting text for the city, which I would like to relate to by Rüdiger Korff. The basic or the central agency of a city is to organize space for all the aspects I've said under special conditions. So, how to grasp the spaces of a city? To conclude with this section of these ideas. Urban spaces are urban products of urban people acting urban in an urban setting, urban environment, and the like. Social spaces are contested, always contested. There's no neutral space, if you like, as they relate to certain classes or groups. An idea, of course, provided by Lefebvre too, and Bourdieu, even Karl Marx, or in the Korff text. So there's no ideal space nor an ideal city, but a city is the most diverse produced space of human history. It's the most interesting space in this regard, if you like to analyze this. And to understand this diversity, you have to understand the relationality of its agents. That's the new idea of this new sociology of space, if you like, or geography of space. You have to understand its agents, the peoples, the goods, the ideologies, the territories, or whatever. How do they interact and relate to each other?
Many thanks, Thomas. What I will discuss now are the consequences, and ask the question, what are the consequences resulting from these insights? It is that we can distinguish different qualities of spaces and places. If you think of the place you grew up, if you wander around in your memories, you will discover places you call your own, you feel familiar with, and other spaces or places that do not form part of your world or that have a very particular meaning compared to all the other spaces you inhabit. Michel Foucault, mentioned by Thomas before, a French philosopher, has conceptualized such spaces of otherness. Foucault is interested in spaces that have the curious property of being in relation with all the other sites, but in such a way as to suspect, neutralize, or invent a set of relations that they happen to designate, mirror, or reflect. These spaces, as it were, which are linked with all the others, which however contradict all the other sides, are of two main types. So according to Foucault, there are places which are linked with all the others in a very particular way, as they are mirrored, reflected, or contradicting all the others. But what are these two types of spaces? Foucault distinguishes between utopias, sites with no real place, unreal spaces, but with the ability of having a real impact on people inhabiting real places. And then there are heterotopias, and this is the concept we want to refer to now in the following. According to Foucault, there are probably in every culture, in every civilization, real places that do exist and that are formed in the very founding of society, which are something like counter-sites, a kind of effectively enacted utopia in which real sites, all the other real sites that can be found within a culture, are simultaneously represented, contested, and inverted. Places of this kind are outside of all places, even though it may be possible to indicate their location in reality, because these places are absolutely different from all the sites that they reflect and speak about. I shall call them, by way of contrast to utopias, heterotopias. So what these two types of other places, the utopias and the heterotopias, have in common is their role as a mirror. Foucault characterizes the mirror as a place, as a placeless place, a place where, in his words, where I am not, where I see myself in an unreal virtual space, utopia. But at the same time, being a heterotopos as the mirror exists in reality. I will not make the story too long now, as all of you have experienced the mirrors. So Foucault's concept of heterotopia should help us to study societies reflected in their spatial structures. So this is why we want to sketch out this concept further out and present principles Foucault elaborated in order to help you, to guide you in exploring cities, looking at different qualities of places. I will now in the following briefly sum up the 6 principles. First, according to Foucault, heterotopias exist in every single culture. So this means that in every single culture there are heterotopias, even though in different forms. Only the fact that societies create heterotopia is, according to Foucault, universal. Heterotopias in such a sense can be heterotopias of deviations. He's giving the example of the honeymoon hotel as a place which is not of the daily life, or psychiatric hospitals. Second principle, societies can make heterotopias functioning in very different ways in different times of history. It means that they are historically contingent. As an example, Foucault discusses cemeteries, the changing of their position with respect to other places in society, changes in rites that refer to changes of our conceptualization of man, life and death. Third principle, heterotopias are capable of juxtaposing in a single real place several spaces that are in themselves incompatible. Think of the theater, the stage, the cinema, or of secret gardens, like Japanese gardens, for example, where you have this entanglement of the profane and the sacred, representing one totality. Fourth principle, heterotopias have a very special relation to time. They are, in analogon to space-time relations, heterochronical. They are kind of rupture in time. Think again of the honeymoon hotel. It's a special time. In German it is called Hochzeit. Or think of cemeteries. This is a place where lifetime ends. Theaters, where lifetime is compromised. Or museums where time is accumulated. Fifth principle, heterotopias presuppose a system of opening and closing that isolates them and makes them penetrable at the same time. They are in general not freely accessible like a public place. Their entry may be compulsory, think of the prison, or linked to rites or particular attitudes. Others seem to be entirely open, but having a kind of hidden exclusion. And sixth and last, heterotopias have a function in relation to the rest of the space. In Foucault's words, either their role is to create a space of illusion that exposes every real space, or else on the contrary, their role is to create a space that is other, another real space, as perfect, as well arranged as ours is messy, ill-constructed and jumbled. The latter Foucault calls heterotopia of compensation. So with these principles, Foucault is outlining to characterize heterotopias. You should have an instrument to do what?
Analyze something, maybe?
Analyze?
Yeah. Conceptualize, think about it, get an experience from it, see it, feel it, hear it.
Oh, well, anyway, they should guide your walks, probably? Yeah?
I think so.
Okay, so we hope that with the concept of heterotopias, we support your further studying of sustainable cities. Many thanks for your attention.
Yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for watching.